Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Alisha Brasher here at Cosmic Gateway, and it's time. It's been a little while since we came together and created a roundtable conversation, and we got the cosmic memo. So here we are back again. I'm joined with Ana, Nick, and Donovan. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Guten Morgen, everybody.
Yeah, it's been a strange old time. And I think, we've sort of been back and forth saying that, I know for a while had every intention of creating a video and nothing would sort of gel or come together. So I decided maybe it's just time just to, step back a little bit. And I know for me, it's been a very, a time of going within and sort of processing a lot of stuff. And it's been, I think, I keep saying, especially for people in Melbourne, this year has been probably a lot harder than it was last year. There's been, it's just been very wearing. And so I've decided to try and conserve a lot of my energy just to focus on my work and sessions and supporting people. But then over the last week, I slowly start to feel myself coming back. It's kind of ironic that I said that because just before we hit the record button, I was like, I think I've gone again. I'm not sure where I am. But that's all right. We keep going. So I don't know about you guys, but I noticed that, speaking to Ana, I guess, and Nick, but during lockdown, you kind of go into a very warped, weird reality. And as soon as they started to announce that things were starting to get open again, which they were as of last week, it was almost like I woke up and I was like, wow, where have I gone in the last couple of months? It was like, I don't have concept of what was going on. It was just like day after day after day. And then all of a sudden it was like, I felt like I was starting to come back into my body. And so, at nighttime, dream space has been wild. I don't know about you guys, but like very, very busy in contrast to, this reality, and everything sort of starts to morph and get a little bit strange. But I'd love to hear about what you guys have been experiencing over the last, little while. Anyway, I won't say a couple of months because time's so weird and warped at the moment. So
I can go first because what you've been saying completely echoes what I've been going through. I mean, I think the last month I haven't created a single podcast apart from another one I went on, but just no desire to do anything, feeling completely withdrawn, but not in a negative way where, it's like depression and things like that, like just chilling out, just trying to reconnect and I guess forget about output for a little bit. Which I think going forward, I'm probably going to start to find that balance between doing and being. I feel like I'm getting called to do that. And I'm guessing that there's other people, Alisha, that are the same, and maybe you guys. But yeah, it's been a really, really interesting, expansive month and a bit. In terms of I've gotten back to doing a lot of the really simple things in life, like I've been doing a lot of gardening, and I've spent time focusing on the lawn, which I used to make fun of my neighbors for. And I'm just enjoying those little things, but I guess maybe looking a little bit deeper, like I planted all the grass seeds, mulched up the soil to get them in there very well, and as they're spawning, I'm going, wow, like I created life, it's and there's all these little shoots coming up, and every day I go out there and survey the lawns, and I get a little bit of a kick out of it, and that's something that I'd forgotten to do, the really, really small things, and that's what I'm starting to enjoy, and I'm very much feeling a shift moving forward, that there's rebirths going on as well, so that's very strong.
I really resonate with what you said, Nick. Like my simple pleasures have been cooking, spending time out in the backyard, just under my beautiful tree, and just you know, I kind of feeling into the collective feeling and then in and out. And I think I've found a lot of peace when I can just sit out in nature and just sit on the earth and feel into the earth and what the earth is going through and the transition. That's been a big part of where I've been spending a lot of my time. And I think it was only just in the last couple of days, and it was your roundtable that you did last weekend, Nick. I put that on. I was playing it in the background, and it's interesting when you can listen to a conversation. I think that was one of the inspirations. I was like, right, time to get back to roundtables, because just listening to other people's conversations, you start to receive your own information, and you get a sense of something while people are talking, and you can relate to it. And I don't know, in the last few days, I've really felt a sense of community and banding together and being really resourceful, resilient, finding different and alternative ways to operate and doing things differently. And that brings me a lot of joy, because I can kind of see people coming together in communities and things like that. And like, that hasn't taken shape yet, but I can certainly feel the energy and pull of that starting to transpire.
I think maybe
Yeah, you
Nick,
go.
you should probably speak to Dale Holmes and get some tips on mowing the grass.
Yeah, I was
Very
gonna
good with
say,
lawn.
Nick, I've been doing the same thing. I reseeded my lawn like 2 weekends ago, and it brought me more joy after 21 years in horticulture, right? So it's like I can do this stuff in my sleep. I know what I'm doing, you know. I know how to prune. I know how to do all the stuff. And but I did lose the enjoyment after 27 years. 27 years in horticulture. And just coming into spring, it says a lot about the physiological changes in the seasons. It does something to you. We know we're connected to all that, right? But when spring comes, I literally feel like I wake up every year from a slumber, and just getting so much joy just planting, like, because I'm planting, you know, food, so snow peas, coriander, potatoes, just anything and everything. I'm just getting so much joy from that. And just enjoying getting out of the mind and getting my hands in the earth, and then just like really it has a balancing effect, because there's so much noise going on up in the mind, and digitally, in the digital world that we're witnessing right now, it can keep you stuck in the mind. So you got to get out and do that, and you always feel better. Hey, so like, and sitting under the stars, that's another one that I've returned to doing, is just like connecting with the cosmos by just looking up at night. It's just like, it just does something absolutely expansive to me. Just the thoughts when you're looking up at the stars, and you go, what am I actually looking at? Like, what am I witnessing? What is this? What is all this? It's like, when you go so many places, you know, like your mind travels in places that takes you out of the box, and then you come back and you're like, oh, that was a nice rest from just looking at the world and being caught up in what's going on, to go far beyond that, you know, which is, again, not bypassing anything, you know, but it's good to stay connected to something that is the expansion of all that you are, and remind yourself. And it reminds you just how important you are, and how important we all are being here right now, you know. And if we're not creating content, it doesn't matter. It's your pure presence that's the ultimate thing that you being here, is just to be here and bring all that you are to the world at this time, you know. I mean, we know we chose it, right?
It's a good reminder some days.
That's actually, I've been quite the opposite, Donovan. I haven't, so went through my phase of being obsessed with plants and gardening, and it is beautiful. You just get grounded, you forget everything. But probably in the last 2 or 3 months, everything's been so busy. I actually haven't been doing my usual of hiking or, you know, being out in nature. And yesterday, going to the beach, I was like, oh my God, I needed this so bad. Just looking at the pretty clouds, and like, you forget how beautiful it is. Like you said, you get busy doing day in, day out social media, and you just forget how beautiful things are. And to not talk about COVID or Dan Andrews or anything like that for like 3 hours, it's like, oh my God, now I'm happy again. Can happen.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry, go.
No, go Nick. Go.
I was thinking about this earlier today, because in the past, I look at situations that people in, because I know a lot of people are doing it really tough, and I'd almost feel a bit guilty that I can, because I've extracted myself from a lot of it, and it's not, I've lost a little bit of money, but it's not affecting me like it affects a lot of people. And I think it's really important that if you can extract yourself from it, to find peace and things like that, because as empaths and things like that, we often take on a lot of stuff from other people. And I know I was pre getting into the gardening and allowing myself to enjoy life and see the beautiful things. I'd feel guilty because I know people are going through so much suffering. So I'd have to create podcasts because I need to try and help them somehow and do them. But then I sort of considered this morning that being able to sit in that space when others can't is probably doing far more than creating a video. There's plenty of videos to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. And I think I've went through a time over the last couple of months, especially knowing and understanding the hardships that a lot of people are facing, especially down here in Melbourne, with loss of jobs and things like that. And, I could feel that energy really almost consumed me for day in, day out. And it brought up a lot of old feelings and experiences that I went through, when I had to kind of transition out of, being paid for a job and going and creating something different. And it was a really good time for me to reevaluate, how far I've come and how I've created something. And instead of absorbing that, feeling that maybe a lot of people are going through, and I don't want to minimize that because it's very challenging. But, I kind of thought to myself, well, I made a massive transition and change doing something that I love, and I wouldn't go back, and look back. And so it was just kind of like almost absorbing the fear and the tension and the scarcity and all those emotions, and then sort of kind of sitting with that, and then sort of giving this feedback of like knowing that these people will, be able to move into doing something different and create a better world and to do things that, light them up, and think, wow, that's actually a beautiful, doesn't mean that there won't be challenges in the interim, but, how beautiful is that they get to be on that precipice of change and to do something different, maybe that they've always wanted. And now, because I know for me, I look back and I think I had so many options and opportunities to opt out and to do this work, over a decade. And I kept going back to, back to working and doing different jobs. And then, the final push came and I was like, I knew I couldn't go back. I had to kind of do what I had been delaying for a long time. So I guess that's my hope in, helping support people to make that transition too. And I guess the more people that do that, we are creating that new world, aren't we? Because we've been talking for so long about how, the systems have to crumble and, the old template of how business and corporation and stuff like that, we're actually witnessing and seeing it, but it is challenging to go through, and whether you're, like you said, Nick, you've, relatively good position, you still feel that change that is happening. So it's challenging for everyone, but I do see a lot of beauty on the other side of that. And just to what you said before, Anna, it's kind of nice to tune off to what's happening in the world of, COVID and then this and that, and just kind of just be in the simplicity of life. And you can kind of create this reality where that's not really, you know, pressed up in your face. You know, there's time, I do believe there's times to go in there and do whatever is necessary, and then there's times to step back. And I think finding that balance is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think it's funny because every day is so hectic and busy, and you know, my favorite pleasures is getting into bed at night, and so it's like a little cocoon of just silence and safety and resting. You know, that's if you don't get the downloads that hit you and you're not really resting. But yeah, you're right, Alisha. Just that balance as well, and also remembering that, you know, when you're going through feeling the scarcity and loss of jobs, like I've had, I think, four or five jobs in the last 2 years, just in and out, in and out. It's weird the way things have worked out, but I don't know what happened last year, but I remember feeling like I wasn't scared. And I remember saying to Alisha, like, oh my God, I'm a single mum. I don't have a job. I should be worried. And I just wasn't, was I? And everything always just worked out. And then I started this job, and then I actually knew it was ending before I would. And when a job was coming to an end, another one came in. I didn't even look for it. It just came. And yeah, 4 jobs actually in 2 years. And they've just been like interweaving in and out, and I stop this one, I start that one. But I think when you really just have faith, because it's easier to sit in your fear and say, oh my God, there's no money and I don't have a job. I've always been the breadwinner, and you kind of panic, and then it just creates. And plus, you got to remember, it's not just your emotions; it's a collective as well. Everyone out there is going through this process. So, yeah, just remembering it does pass, and if we can just surrender to it and trust that something else is coming, it's a much easier process.
I really feel too, Alicia, you're saying about the old structures in the old world dying, right? So we're going through a grieving process, and collectively you watch it. You know, you know that the textbook grieving process where we go like anger, guilt, shame, blame, all the way up to acceptance, right? It makes sense that we're all revisiting like the past, how we got to where we are today, and then looking at the world. How did this get to this point, right? And we have to go through that grieving process of the old world in order to bring in that new world, you know. So it happens simultaneously. The old world's dying while the new world's coming in. And it goes a long way to saying what's coming in 2022. I'm starting, like literally in the last 24 hours, I'm starting to feel the energy of 2022 coming in. And I'm like, let me sit with that. What's that energy? What am I feeling here? And it's the 222, right? Which makes 6. And the 222, I know collectively, because I sit at the center of a lot of people telling me that, you know, their number codes and what they're getting. It's been off the scale, 222, for many, many people. And I'm like, that's the 2022 energy coming in. Right, it's starting to enter. Right, and it's starting to give us a sense where we're headed. And the thing is, we're moving into November, which is an 11, right? 1 + 1 is 2. So we're starting to get that 2 energy, right? And what we're witnessing is the precipice and the peak of division right now, on a micro level and a macro level. And we know it's getting to a point where it's like, okay, we're at the tail end of this now. Like, even though it might take a few more months to see the full fruition of what's coming, our new world, which we know is coming, and the old structures completely dissipated. We're balancing up that division. And as we watch the division out in the world, so we've got this overlord, overreaching government structure versus we, the people, and it's us versus them. And then that's infiltrated into our lives, into our families, jab or no jab, conversations around structures and beliefs, it's all breaking down. But the division is actually here to serve us, because if we don't get to the precipice of division, we don't, by doing that, we actually learn to understand ourselves and each other better. And that's the energy of the two. The two is the peacemaker, actually. But two is polarity. And unless we can witness the polarity that I witness out there in the world and realize that I have some of that within me and I need to heal that within me, I can't yet connect with what gift that division has within it, waiting to unleash first within me, and then I can witness that out in the world, knowing that what I do within me is a whole universe that's connected to everything out there. So that two energy coming in November. So what are we? We're like, we've got to get through Halloween, Beltane, right? When the veil is the thinnest, and we could feel this, there's a pretty big energy coming up around that. And you've got the two polar opposite energies happening on the planet right now, where you've got and I will call it the dark forces, right? And they revere Beltane for a reason, because it's the point before we step into that 11 gateway every year of November. And the 11 gateway, as everyone knows, is the number of awakening, right? So I feel like that's starting to really move in, is that once we get over Halloween, which is they celebrate that almost like that's their big day of the year, the dark forces, because they like to rise up the energies of what they actually worship, right? They worship the polar opposite to the ones that are wanting to work from love. They're wanting the opposite, so they're going to bring it. And what's going to be interesting is, as we head into the 11th month of the year, which is the 11, I think people are going to have to see, and we are in governments and the way things are playing out, we're going to have to see the absolute opposite to what we want in order to go, oh shit, what do we do? Like the division between families and friends, and we're all losing friends and family relationships because it's gotten untenable. You can't have open discussions because people are just either one way or the other. That's that division of the two, where it's like we have to see it get so obvious and bad that we go, hang on, what are we doing to each other? Like, what? This is not what it's about, but the division has a gift in it. And I said 2021 is very much the year of mastering the mirror. And when you look at an 11, it's two ones, but they're facing each other. It creates a gateway you walk through, but it's looking at oneself, right, and reflecting back to oneself what's out there and what's in me, and then seeing it clearly, right? So as we step through that 11th month, that 11 gateway, I feel like, even so, when we know things are going to shift is when the vaccinated people start protesting with the unvax, right? And that's already begun. If you saw New York yesterday, right, the vax, they're meeting up with with the unvax, and they're going, no, enough is enough. This is all wrong. Like, there's something wrong with this. We don't want. So that's very much what I see coming in November. It's going to hit that precipice where we're all actually going to pull together and say, we want peace, we want love. We don't want this division. And we've started to realize it's not getting caught up in the details of, like it's the greatest example, the vaccine, the jab and the not jab. Like, we've been distracted from the true essence of the gateway of awakening that we all collectively as humanity need to step through, which is, what kind of a world do we want? And you're seeing people pulling together who even 3 to 6 months ago were on completely opposite pages. And that's the beauty of stepping through that 11 gateway as we move into November. But on 31st of October with Beltane, we're gonna be able to see the ugly rearing head of the dark forces, like really go, like they're not hiding it anymore. We know that, right? And they're just like, this is the world we want to create. And then we're going to go, we don't want that. Thank you very much. That's lovely. But we want love, peace, unity, and we want a world where everybody has abundance, everybody has enough, and we know we can create it. This is why crypto is hitting a precipice at the moment. And this is why the structures are trying to attract crypto, because they know that financial systems very much reflect collective consciousness. They know that if the people, a whole new system comes in, it destroys their old system, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to protect their system, right? So there's so much happening, whether you look at the financial, you look at the governmental stuff, you look at the medical stuff, you look at the personal everyday stuff, you can see that shift happening. And it's actually very exciting, because when we move into 2022, we've got the 6 energy coming in from that. Through that division, we find our unity, we find peace within and without, and we create the 6. And 6 is the number of humanity. It's a humanitarian number. It is the number of love. It is the number of family. So we become one family again. 6 is the heartbeat, all right? The 6 is the heart. It is love. And so we're moving into a world next year where the collective humanity heartbeat is going to start to beat in coherence, and that is going to energetically change so much on such a great level that it will actually allow, with 2021, I feel like is going to be the worst it got. I don't feel like 2022, people say, oh, it's got to get worse before it gets better. I think we're in it, and we've been in it, but 2022 is now starting to come in through that 222 vibration. I'm feeling, because 2 is a peaceful number. It's the mediator, it's the counselor, it's the healing number. It's the most empathic, intuitive number. And as we move into the energy of 2022, we're all going to start reconnecting with our intuition and our compassion and love for trying to find solutions by working together. And that's the 2 1s come together to make 2, right? 1 plus 1 is 2. So November's feeling to me like a lot more people are going to step through that gateway, and through the division getting the worst it's gotten, that's actually going to wake a lot more people up very, very, very quickly. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, beautifully said, Donovan. Thank you. I've been getting a lot of 6s in my dreams. I think for months now, I've been dreaming about February next year, with no specific details, but just like change. I know that February last year and this year was a time where it felt like timelines got flipped around and changed, and I know that in my dream space, going back and forward, sort of altering to get a clear run into next February. But I know that, a lot of people have, said, it's going to get a lot more worse, blah, 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 blah. And I think initially when people would say that to me, it would really trigger me, because I was like, I don't know how much more I can take, honestly. And the last few days I sat with it and I was like, can I take a couple more years of this and just kind of do what I've been doing and do the best that I can? I was like, yeah, I've got the stamina. And as soon as you can dissolve that fear, then you're ready and prepared for anything, and it's a state of being in resilience, I guess, which, funnily enough, I always thought that was something I didn't have. That was an attribute that that wasn't very pronounced within me, was resilience. And I think that this last few years has showed, just how resilient we are. And I think at the worst it gets, it's beautiful, because you do see people coming together, and that's the entire purpose of it, ultimately.
It's a beautiful feeling, isn't it, when you don't have that fear anymore of like, oh my God, things are going to get worse, and how am I going to cope with it? And and then you think about your loved ones as well. Like, I always think about my children and think, what kind of world are they going to have to go through next year? But it's just like, we'll be okay. We are actually going to be okay. And yes, you can do a couple more years.
Yeah.
That's beautiful about the numerology. Sorry guys, I kept switching it off because my Wi-Fi is pretty bad, so I've actually just had to move to another room. But I love that you were talking about the number 6, Donovan, because a lot of people will say, 6 is a bad number, and you just and so there's a car that parks across the road from me, and their number plate is 666. And I've got a friend that will say, oh, that's bad luck, it's right there. And it's like, I don't think 6 is bad luck. I thought it was about relationships and love. I don't know, I'm not an expert on numbers, but I see I don't know, birth with number 6. So I think what you said, Donovan, would have actually given people out there listening a bit of comfort, because it seems very doom and gloom. Like, you got Marburg, you got social credit, you got climate change. But I don't know if anyone's actually thought that, what if none of that came true? What if that was just a possible, like Alisha always says, possible timeline, but doesn't come true? I'm not saying, I don't want to water it down, because I think, so many predictions out there happening and people giving false hope as well. And I think it makes people a little bit too complacent in doing the work. But I just got a lot of comfort out of listening to you, Donovan. So I'm like, could be possible. Thank you.
And it's good. It is really, I always find it's more useful. I often, when I do numbers with people, I like to talk about what's the lesson in the number more than just all the beautiful stuff, because that's not really useful. It's great, it makes you feel good, but I'm not here to just give people a dopamine hit from, oh, la-di-da, angel numbers, right? Because we're all here to transform, grow, and expand and learn. Our lesson is what we came here to learn on a soul level, right? And the lesson of the 6 is actually about, you guys were talking about how you've been feeling not to continue to like create content at such a high rate and whatever. See, the 6 energy coming in says, number one, I don't have to be perfect all of the time. That's the first thing to accept, that you are human while you're a soul, and your job is to love your humanness as much as your soul, and to enjoy every experience and be grateful for all of it, because we're always learning, growing, expanding everything we experience. But the other thing about the 6 is the lesson of the 6 is about overgiving, right? And we know that if we're overgiving, there's something out of balance within us, because what we're actually doing is we're avoiding self by trying to save others. And what the year 2021, I think, very much taught us all was, you can't save anyone. They have to learn to save themselves. And I think healing modalities have gone through its own next level of awakening, where so many people that were doing healing for the last 10, 20, 30 even years, where they became the guru and the savior that people would look to, and people would be like, come to me, I'll fix you. I'll fix your problems, I'll fix your issues. That the true healing actually happens where the healer realizes they are just an activator to activate the healing that that person is choosing for themselves. And the other thing about the 6 lesson is 6 is about taking responsibility, right? So it's about taking responsibility, that if I'm carrying stuff, triggers, traumas, resentments, and all that stuff within me, if I truly want to shift and expand and learn and grow, I have to take responsibility for my role in, whatever emotions, triggers, and traumas are coming up. I'm the only one that can actually fix that. No one can do it for me, right? So, and it's about, 6 is about empowerment, empowering yourself, because it's very much the pregnant woman, right? And she's birthing something. And the strongest, most powerful woman on the planet is a woman at the peak of her pregnancy, right? She's shining, she's glowing, she's got all this cosmic energy running through her as a vessel that she's about to give birth to. And there's a sense of, once she gives birth, there's a sense of achievement, right? Because the 6 is the next most abundant number other than the 8. Is like creating abundance, but it's, and 6 is animals and nature, right? So it's all connected through the 6, which is the heart. And the thing, what I'm saying is, taking responsibility has been a really big theme this year, where a lot of people who have been doing healing work have got to the point where if they were dealing with clients that just wanted to keep coming and getting their dopamine hit, and then they go, oh, I feel better, they go away, they come back a month later, oh, I need another session, and I'm just, everything's falling apart. And a lot of healers getting to the point where they're like, you're not doing your own, you're not taking responsibility for your own shit, to create the life you want to live, for the reality you want to experience. And you need to honor your traumas and all your triggers, and you need to work with them, because that's where the gifts are waiting for you, rather than come to me to fix it. I'm not here to fix you. you're here to fix you. I can hold space for you, but you're the one that ultimately has to step through that gateway and take the responsibility that your passion and your purpose is actually sitting inside your pain. And if you're willing to sit with it, it's got many messages for you rather than push it down and avoid it. And that's what we talk about, the inner work, doing the work, right? And I feel like that's very much what this year taught me, is to take responsibility, and that there's no right or wrong emotion. Feeling sad, angry, whatever, they've all got a polar opposite energy to them that's actually what they're trying to unleash within you. So we don't make any emotion wrong. We love the emotion, we embrace it, we sit with it, and we say, oh, what are you here for? Because the polar opposite of anger is like motivation and drive, right? It's a great energy, a very powerful energy to work with. The polar opposite of sadness is joy, right? But how do you get to joy? Not by pushing your sadness down. It's finding out where that trauma has made you sad or depressed, and then go, all right, so what can I do with that that'll bring me to joy? And you're not going to get to joy if you push your sadness down. The best way you're going to get to joy is to love and nurture your sadness. Find out where it came from. Love your experiences, become grateful for them, and in the process of doing that, you actually end up transforming sadness to joy. And it's all possible for all of us, but it's just a delay if you're trying to blame something outside yourself. Oh, they did this to me 20 years ago, or my parents were shit parents, or my trauma, and when we know there's been a lot of sexual trauma coming up collectively, especially for women. It's such a big theme at the moment, and I've spoken to many divine feminines having a lot of that come up in October. It's because it's coming up so that you can address it, you can heal it, and you can work with your trauma, because every time one divine sovereign vessel heals a trauma within them, collectively there's a healing that's taken place that then ripples out for the whole collective. And we know that. We've talked about that for years, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to add to your when you said taking responsibility, Donovan. People like, I guess you go and see a healer, and you feel good for 2 or 3 days or a week, and but no one actually walks away and puts it into practice on a day-to-day basis to create that new pattern of behavior or responding to a situation. And I took my daughter to see a kinesiologist last weekend, and so I was in the room, but I was actually knocked out. I was napping in the corner. I think the energies in there were pretty high, but she was teaching my daughter about how to be present, and because my daughter tends to overthink, your typical Virgo. And so one of the things that the kinesiologist taught her was how to be present when she's eating instead of watching TV, and just bringing your awareness back. And so I made dinner the other night and I gave it to her, and she sat there. She said, all right, now Lily, be present with your food. Where did you come from? And then she goes, from mama. And she's talking to her. But I think there's a lot of joy to be had in putting things to practice. It's not always hard work, and it's not always painful, but it's really important to walk away from a session to, Alisha, I'm sure you've had many where they might walk away, but don't actually put it into practice, and don't believe that that new way of being can come in. It's embodying those new ways is where the key is at. And I think I was saying to Alisha, I feel like I completed a mission the other day with my son. And, it's something like codependency has been coming up a lot, right? I guess when you lose your job, you don't realize you're so codependent to your employer to provide for you. And, so many ways of codependency, and I'm like, you can have fun with it. My daughter showed me that. I'm like, shit, okay, it doesn't have to be hard work and sitting there and meditating for 2 hours, or, but yeah, taking responsibility, it comes in handy. And especially after seeing a healer, it's a good way to honor that session you just had with them, and carrying on the work, spreading your own light.
I guess to expand on that, but knowing that things are going to keep coming. So like I had this week where I was just in bliss, right? but I was conscious the whole time, this won't last. Like things will come up. And sure enough, within a week, there's things bubbling up. And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. As much as I wanted to stay in this Zen, like, you know, like couldn't give an F about anything state, I sat in the meditation when the meditation wasn't going like a meditation should go. You know, when I'm just like, oh, I feel worse, you know. But it's all part of the process, because you can go to these sessions like you say and you feel really good, and you do have to do the work. But even when you do the work, there are still going to be things that come up, but that's part of the process and part of the, I mean, maybe a Zen state would get awfully boring after 3 months. Maybe I'll be like, well, I need some action. Like it's all the contrast and things like that. Like that's part of the magic as well.
Well, I think growth comes from conflict. Imagine if we're all blissed out all the time. What would we do? We just smile and
Hey man, we could sit here and just go, hey man. And Donovan would go, hey man. Alisha go, hey man.
You know, I give you guys a visual that I've just constantly been seeing, and this visual really to me speaks to everything we've just been talking about, and it's very much like I talked to Deb about it in our relationship, and you know how coherent energies work, and basically what you were just describing, Nick, very much what I've been coming to understand this year. Is that it's not that your ups and downs forever. That will never stop. That is how the universe breathes, you know, contraction, expansion. That's how it moves. That's how the whole of creation, it's in a constant state of movement, you know. And it's kind of like this, right? So here's a fairly stable kind of person, right? So you're still having your ups and downs, right? But it's curvy, it's soft, right? But this person's quite stable. Here's their buffer zone, right? Their internal world, their internal vibration, right? Now, someone who's out of balance, what they do is this. Give me a sec. This is the visual I've been getting, right? Someone who's really unstable is they're going outside their center and they're going, oh my God, I'm so high, so amazing, everything's beautiful, everything's amazing, oh my God. And then crash. Oh my God, I'm falling apart, everything's going wrong, everyone hates me, oh my God, what am I going to do in the future? My kids, I'm worried about them. And just like total fucking, you're just a mess. And then you start to come up, right? And then you're getting too high again, and then do it, right? And this is how a lot of people who are very unbalanced, right, are constantly living day to day, extreme ups and extreme downs, right? But what you do when you take responsibility, like you were saying, Anna, and you learn to work with your ups and downs, you start to have a much more smooth time. But you understand, like Nick said, I'm still going to have my ups and downs. They're never going to go away. It's just that you've learned to stay in your center and know that, yeah, okay, how am I feeling today? I'm feeling a bit tired. I'm feeling a little bit sad. I'm feeling a little bit worried about where the world's headed. And then the next day, oh, I'm feeling really, you know, peaceful, happy within myself, not affected by anything, whatever. But your extreme downs and ups are much more, you know, able to be dealt with because you can hold this stability of vibrations that you've worked on within yourself instead of to have to force yourself to go like this and have that constant, you know, extreme one way, extreme the other. And then the other thing about coherent energies, right? And obviously that looks like a sound wave, but coherent energies look like this. Right? Coherent energies look like this. When another person comes into your vibration who's vibrating at a similar frequency to you, this is in sound waves, this is what harmony looks like. And 6 is the number of harmony. That's what we're moving into 2022. Coherent vibrations. This is also like a heartbeat. When you see the heartbeat thing at the hospital, right? It's going boom, 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 boom. And you get 2 coherent energies. And See, but you're in polarity, right? You have to be in polarity with someone, and we're all in polarity to each other because no one's you, right? So two hearts beating in polarity but in harmony with each other creates harmony and stops this constant like chaos, right? And that's what I was saying, like the people that I can feel that I'm most coherent with, they've worked on this, they know where to find their center, and they're not constantly going completely out of control, up and completely down. I can feel really coherent with them, and it's much more smooth. And you just feel, it's something you feel, because vibration is energy, and you feel their energy and you feel comfortable. You feel like there's no chaos, just like, you know, and that's how I think we're starting to understand, you know, there will always be people out there that will choose chaos because they're not dealing with their own traumas and their stuff. They're unhealed. And you can feel the energy of that person, and you can go, all right, look, I've got a choice who I want to cohere with on an energetic vibration. What I've been finding this year is very naturally, people are just coming into my reality that are already cohering. And it's like this immediate knowingness because you can feel that energy and it's in harmony. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm
Very
so
tight
stoked your
sand
pen
too.
came out.
What's that, Nick?
Said I'm wrapped. His pen came out in my day.
Did you see him? He had it in his mouth before, like, oh, it's coming.
It's very, I love the simplest stuff. It's very simple. It's
Yeah.
not complicated sacred geometry or anything. It's just a sound wave, a light wave, an energy wave. And that's what everything's made of. So it just makes sense to me, you know. And the beautiful thing about the number 6 that's coming is on a collective level, the heartbeat of the earth as humanity starts to cohere. We know that when hearts come into presence and they cohere together in harmony, it does something to the vibration of the planet. So we should see it in Uncle Shushu, in the Schumann resonance. And then, Alisha, I'd love to know from you what's been happening with the sun, but I also think, you know, we'll also get to see that further out in the cosmos, in the light that's coming into the planet and what the sun's going to be reacting to as that heartbeat starts to really come into coherence with humanity.
I just want to take the time to share, because we're talking about people doing their own healing work, and I honestly want to honor just a little portion of this segment to honor the people who have come to me, because I think in the last 3 to 4 months, every session that I've done has been unpacking so much. Normally, you know, people might come for 1 or 2 things, but as we sit and we talk and we unpack it, there's just this layer upon layer upon layer that's being uncovered, explored, gone into. And I think the level that people are doing the work at the moment is phenomenal. And, you know, I just want to give a massive shout out to those people, because that's important, you know, and people are unpacking things that are, you know, not even in relation to this lifetime, but there's overarching themes as we've witnessed. You know, a lot of people are uncovering things of traumas that may still be embedded in the soul frequency from previous wars and things like that. I know that's been coming up for a lot of people. And it's like, as you're able to go in and kind of look and feel and explore that, then it changes this experience now, and it kind of condenses everything. So but on a cosmic note, I think we've had 15 solar flares in the last 15 hours, so the sun's really cranked up a notch. Yeah. I can get the chart out. By the way, 15 so we didn't have a lot of activity for a while, and yeah, just in the last let's say 24 hours to be safe, but I think it's less than that. We've just had another one go off now. Yep. So I don't know if people can see that chart there, but that's all just happened in the last 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So the sun is moving into its solar maximum state, but we're well ahead of the curve in what is predicted at this point in time. And I think that's exciting because I know that when the influx of the solar activity, it really does heighten either triggers or heightened states of consciousness, depending on where your vibration is at. And that's been my observation over, say, the last 6 to 7 years, is that if there's stuff to be dealt with, it will start to rise to the surface in those moments. So it can make people really angry, but there's always an opportunity there to take that anger and turn it into passion. Don't sit in that anger, explore it, experiment it, and then how can I create or be a catalyst for change in this thing that I'm feeling repressed about. And then I think once you start to break down some of that density that you're holding within you, the sun's activity can really bring heightened, elevated states of, consciousness and inspiration and downloads. And it can, I don't know about you, but I felt it coming in before I get notifications on the app, it's Space Weather Live app. So anyone who wants to download it, but I think I fine tune my vessel to feel just as it's coming off, and I can start to feel the vibration rising in my body, and I can feel it, in different parts of my body. And I've been getting these little intuitive hits. Just stay really still. Just stay really still. Just feel into the body and what is taking place right now. And so I'll lay there and I can start to feel into, the subtle vibration, how that energy is passing through and moving through my body. And, on a cellular structure, we're being rewired. And I think a lot of information's been coming through my dreams night after night after night, kind of giving me progress updates and reports. And I think that the last message that I got, I think I shared it in a post yesterday. It was like, this is very much a time of physicality. And I've noticed that a lot of people in the spiritual community way shows have been quite unwell, but it feels like these frequencies are really penetrating right down into the physical structure of our body at the moment.
Just on the
Might
sun
explain the headache.
activity.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anna, go.
I just said it might explain the headaches, like the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I was just going to say on the sun's activity, I was listening to some of David Wilcock's recent videos, and it's so exciting to understand that when the biggest events have happened in human history, it's been at the solar max, right?
Yeah.
Global financial crises, pandemics, real ones, might I add, plagues, like locust plague, just all sorts of big events, often are activated and triggered by solar maximum. And as we're heading into that, it just confirms that we're going to see a completely new world, like really. And I think the sun is playing a very big role, very activated. How do you feel the sun, Nick? Do you ever go out and sit in the sun and feel the rays?
I sit in the sun every day.
Awesome.
If I didn't have neighbors, it'd be stark naked, but I get the shirt off and get out there. Yeah, like literally every day. If the sun's out, I go and do it every day for at least 20 minutes. Yeah. No, that's like really, really important to me. And I can feel if I don't. In terms of when you talk about these flares coming off and things like that, if they are a bit more intense, I'll notice, I'll correlate it with something that's happened. So I'll go, oh, that's why that happened. Usually I'll see one of Alisha's posts and I'll go, oh, that explains that, like headaches, things like that. So it does happen, not all the time. I think it does depend on where you're at as well. Like if, when there's times where I'm probably not so centered and things like that, it's probably, I think you're less receptive to some of the subtler energies and things like that.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you can't feel it. It's like there's a buffer between you and feeling those energies. But when you're in a good vibration, you're in sync with it. You can actually, your body picks up on it, like Alisha was saying, And I also noticed that from day to day, and I don't think it's just the seasonal changes, from day to day, the sun's light color will slightly change. Sometimes there'll be a more white element to it. Sometimes there'll be more of a yellow element to it. Sometimes more of a red element to it. Do you guys notice that?
I've seen a green. Sometimes the sun looks green to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you picked that up, because I always say, oh, it looks like it's not yellow, but it's like gold. But green shows up for me a lot with the sun. Like Nick, every day I'll go and sit out there. Actually, my mum always says, oh, you're getting too dark. I'm like, so what? Because I just love it. Like, there's something about the morning sun. Why do you think there's a change to the color of the sun?
Alisha? I mean, for me, it kind of reminds me of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon logo, right? Where you get the white light coming into the pyramid and it splits into every color in the rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the sun's light contains every vibrational frequency available to it. This is why it feeds us on a physiological and a soul level, because light contains information, and it's like the light is the food of the cosmos, right? That's why sitting in the sun, you're actually receiving light energy, which, like a plant, makes its own food from light energy. So when you realize that every color that exists on even beyond our visible frequency is coming into you, that you can be receptive to, it only makes sense that sometimes it might be slightly more one color than another. It's just a different vibrational frequency that's coming in. And to me, that, like when I sit in the sun, I feel the sun is a being. It's alive. It knows what it's doing and what it's delivering you. And it's delivering us something that it's interacting with because of what we're putting towards it, and it's reacting to that and then giving us something back. It's just a concept that I feel when I sit in the sun. I can't say there's any truth to that. It's just something I feel.
I just want to go back to what you said before about the grounding and centering yourself, Donovan, because it's been such a full-on week and there's been a lot of emotions. A lot of anger has come up this week, actually, in the last 2 weeks. And there's a lot of conflict. And I was talking to a girlfriend and I said to her, why don't you go and center yourself, ground yourself? It'll help. And I spoke to her like 3 hours later and she's like, yeah, grounded myself, didn't fix the problem. And I'm like, yeah, about that. Grounding doesn't fix the problem. And I thought, I wonder how many people out there actually think that once you've grounded yourself, that the problem goes away. Has anyone else thought about that? No?
No,
Anyway.
I hadn't considered that.
It's
Easy,
interesting because, yeah, well, people that are new to, grounding and centering and meditation and stuff like that, it doesn't make the problems go away, but it does make it easier to manage it or process it. Yeah.
I really think that comes back to this, Anna. When you ground, you actually center and stabilize your vibration. So it's not that the problem's gone away. Remember the ups and downs.
Yeah.
Still there, but you can deal with it in a more grounded, centered way because
100%.
you're more stable.
Yeah.
So you don't feel the chaos of being so devastated.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, this is happening. I've got to deal with it. Let me just be okay with with the fact that this is happening. And one of my favorite sayings is, if it's happening, it's meant to be happening. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening, right?
Yeah.
And every experience is there for you to learn, grow, and evolve and expand. So whether it's considered good or bad, it doesn't really matter. It's just like, what are you going to do with it? But if you're in a stable, centered vibration, you can deal with the same experience from a more, it's like a sound wave. You're dealing it from a more stable vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So grounding, of course, it only makes sense, doesn't it? Really.
Welcome back, Alisha.
I'm back. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I have a wasp in the house and a dog to attack it. So I'm like
Oh, wasp medicine. I'll have to look that up. Wasp medicine.
I looked it
I
up.
thought
Second time I've had one in the house this week.
there was something happening there.
Yeah, we've got a standoff happening in the background. And when I first got Luna, just had this fascination with eating wasps, and I'd have to quickly rush her down to the vet, and they would have to give her an injection. And I think she just built up an immunity to it over time. I don't do that anymore. She can eat as many as she wants, but still.
Wow. Wasps are very connected to the cosmic patterns and geometry of the cosmos. Because if you look at a paper wasp nest, it's all sacred geometry. Beautiful. They're very intelligent, and they're highly attuned to energy. So it's interesting that you received a wasp today.
I won't try and get him out of my house, and I'll just leave him. I want to bring up something because it's going back a little bit in the conversation, but talking about like things going on, for whatever period of time. Because I have been so insular and just I've been in this observing mode. And Anna can probably attest to this, because I think she came around and I was just staring and she's like, what are you staring? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like there's times that I'm in receptive mode where I'm just like, I'm this observer and I'm like collecting all this data and information, and I've got nothing really to say, but I'm just observing different energy and almost like feeding it back to some sort of command center or whatever. That's the only way I can describe it. And I had this dream, so anyway, I have two things I want to talk about, but as I've been observing, when I go into those pockets of polarity, I guess, of everything that's happening in the world, that are, creating a lot of division and things like that, I can sit in that timeline and in that space, but it feels like there's nothing. It feels like it's a dead end. And so I've kind of been observing, like going into that space and just kind of holding space and then coming back out and then seeing a beyond time. And there's been this kind of interchanging of like going into different timelines almost on a, hourly basis. Some days it's like one day off, one day on. But I had this dream, because I've been working on evolving my offerings and services, and it's been a kind of a fun way of like looking at combining hypnosis with energy work and making a real experiential process. And it been creeping in, and that's why I like when I have those more hermiting times, because it gives me time to reflect on how I can change and evolve and adapt to what people need, and I spoke to the full moon. I think we passed the full moon in Aries last week sometime, and I went out there, and it's so funny because I actually had a better interaction with the moon. I know last year I couldn't even look at the moon. It gave me the creeps. It was just like this kind of weird energy coming off it, and that has shifted and changed. I haven't intuitively checked in as to why that is, but I did notice that, and I said to the universe, I'm like, give me something. You need to talking to the moon. I'm like, give me something. And that night I started to download this technique, and so I've been trying it out. It's been really effective. But in that dream, when I was downloading it, I'll never forget, I saw this imagery of this massive hole that had been dug out almost in a like a coffin shape, that it goes like that and goes up, and kind of, it was cut out like that, but it was a hole in the ground. And I looked at it and it was like, oh, okay. And I walked past it and I looked back, and all of a sudden it had been filled in with all these bricks, and it was creating like a temple type structure. And in the dream I was like, wow, that was a timeline shift. That happened really quickly. And someone popped in, they were like, yeah, that happened within 4 to 5 minutes, that the reality completely shifted from something that was kind of very dark and gloomy to something that was kind of rebuilding a structure. So in terms of how things can shift and change, I think it depending on which energy we're vibrating at that moment, and not to give judgment if we're in that space of feeling grief or loss or something, you know, that's okay. You know, I think we're there for a reason, because I think a lot of us have now been able to embody a lot of this frequency and not be on that spectrum that you drew, Donovan, because I know looking at that, I was like, that was me for years, the epic highs and the just catastrophic lows. But this year, being able to kind of navigate it in, which I'm really proud of myself, in a very grounded way, of just embodying. And I think that's a lot of the process of what I've noticed doing, is going into that spaces in that grounded approach, and just holding the energy that we're able to hold to go into those spaces that can create change.
It's beautiful. It makes such a big difference, doesn't it? I mean, I think everyone every now and then still experiences the spikes of the highs and the lows, right? But it gets so rare. Like in my own experience, it gets rare now. I can't remember the last time I was spiked up high and dropped quite low, but it makes a big difference. Like you said, Alisha, you know, just when you ground yourself and you can observe and honor whatever emotions are coming up, rather than, and you know what else too, I've noticed, when we were on the beach last night, I ended up talking to this psychologist, and you know, so he was talking to me about his modality of healing and his views on where we're heading as a collective. And he was saying that because he wants to focus on addictions and you know, porn, Netflix, food, drugs, alcohol, whatever. And he was saying that he thinks we're going to get worse collectively because the addictions, people used it during lockdown. And that psychologists and psychiatrists are going to be, you know, needed a lot in the next coming years. And it's funny because when he was talking about it, I'm thinking that's not the world that I'm in. I know a lot of people that have gone organic, walking out in nature a lot, started planting their own veggies. And so he has this world that he's seeing that, you know, people are going to be medicated and all this stuff and addicted to things. Whereas I saw a different world that's coming, and I thought, oh my God, thank you for talking with me tonight. We were so different. I'm like, I kind of did the creepy stare at him, Alisha, like really watching him as he was talking, because I'm like, wow, your world where you're going is so different to mine. Because, and I shared that with him. I said, a lot of the people that I know are starting to become vegetarian or even a fruitarian, you know, not necessarily cutting out meat and fish, but just choosing what feels right for them in that time, that conscious eating. So I feel like in my world, mental illness is actually going to drop and addictions are actually going to drop. You know, reliance on prescription medicines and stuff like that will drop. Whereas, yeah, very interesting to have that conversation with him. And he's pretty adamant that that I was not right. But I did say that, you know, this is happening all over the world. People are starting to do this. It's not just me among my bubble of friends, you know.
That's so
yeah.
This is awfully interesting. So when we had our first lockdowns, I was working for Australia Post, and I spent most of the night throwing cartons of alcohol on the conveyor belts. Like, it was just pumping out of the joint. Everyone was drinking. Obviously, I'm not working this one. I'm imagining something similar is happening. But conversely, I've started to go down that organic path. So I place all my fruit and veg meat deliveries online because I'm extracting myself from that mental asylum out there. So I'm not seeing on it. Like, I'm waiting for my water to get delivered this morning. Like, everything just gets delivered to me. I don't go anywhere. I've been a literal hermit. So I can kind of, I feel what you're, I tend to side with you, Anna, because I still do feel that more people are going to go down that route, because a lot of people in the groups we're in, they're talking about growing their own veggies and stuff like that. Like, so I'm doing the same, setting up herbs, but with the stuff, you know, doing it in a way that puts nutrients in the food, you know, like focusing on that quality and going back to earth and nature and things like that. So I'd be interested to, maybe I should take up another job at Australia Post and see how much grog's going through the joint. But hopefully less. But I guess there's maybe two things going on here, but it's where we choose to focus our attention on that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed too that the medical institutions tend to give a very depressive outlook about where things are
for
going to
sure.
head? And that's still part of the old consciousness, is like, oh no, it's gonna, suicide's gonna go up through the roof and addiction's gonna go there. And it's like that may not actually be the truth, you know, because on a deeper level, people are shifting in ways that they're, you know, they might have been drinking for different reasons during lockdown than what they had previously. But as we go through this shift, the one thing I'm noticing, and I'm sure you guys, very much what you're saying, Nick, I'm actually thinking about now, you know, why would I want to shop? I'm trying to avoid it the best I can, but why would I want to shop at a multinational corporation like Aldi's, Coles, and Woolies, knowing what my dollar is doing? I'm voting with my dollar. Like, I'm part of the problem. If I keep giving them my money, what am I doing? Like, this is insane, you know? And I know many people are starting to think about that, because when we look at the corporations and the way what's breaking down, or what we want to break down, every time people have stopped being in that numbed, brainwashed state where they just go, oh yeah, I'm pissed off at all what's happening in the world, but I'll still go to Coles and Woolies and I'll buy all my shopping there. People actually stop and go, hang on, the company that owns that owns the stocks, the shares, and the blah blah, that leads all the way up the tree. Oh shit, I'm actually feeding that system. And I think that's why we're more aware of people that are actually going, no, I need to do things differently, because it's going to be the little things we do, and lots of us doing those little things is going to make that big change. Definitely. Yeah.
Especially given that, like, for me, one of the big catalysts was that the supermarkets mandated the jabby. And I was like, okay, I had to ask myself, because I've always intended to go down this route, and they literally pushed me in that direction, you know, stopped my procrastinating, because I had to sit there and go, you know what, are you full of it, or do you believe in human rights? And I'm like, well, yeah, I have to go down this route now. And I did. And I mean, it's interesting because everyone goes, oh, my dollar counts, you know, like I haven't got the money to go and buy good quality fruit and veg, you know, organic if need be. I actually found out that I'll probably spend the same amount of money, because I'm not going in the shopping with a boatload of stuff regardless, but also the prices were comparative for organic. I mean, you're not going to get stuff that's out of season, but, you know, you can certainly make do's.
I think we're not really meant to eat food that's out of season anyway.
No.
But it's funny because I actually woke up this morning, and you know when you wake up and you've got a thought pattern that plays out already, and mine this morning was, what difference would it make if I started shopping organically instead of going to Coles, even clothes? I actually did a mental list in my head this morning of Christmas shopping that I need to do. And because last year I didn't go to the usual Myer, Kmart, Target stuff for presents. I went to the markets, and my nieces and nephews kind of looked at me like, what's this wooden toy? And I decided this morning, I did my Christmas list in my head, and I thought, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go to the markets and support the local markets and businesses. Even going on Etsy is better than going to Target or Kmart, you know, online shopping, because they're run by small businesses. But I think, Nick, it was your post this morning, the other day, I can't remember the lady's name, Bettina. She's been going to the market, and I thought it can be a nice social catch up, as well as, you know, getting your food supplies. And I think a little bit of extra money, if you can, where you can, some people will feel it, but if you can get away with it, definitely support the local markets and businesses rather than going to the big corporations.
But how does it feel like when I do this? So I found this little farm that does veggie boxes. I'm buying from another human being, a family, it feeds
Yeah.
my soul as well as my
Yeah.
stomach. You know what I mean? Like literally. And I feel good. Like I feel great about what I'm doing. Like in
Yeah.
every fiber of my being, it feels like where we need to be at, because we're, as much as we're moving forward as a species into a new age, there's this digression that's in there, and we're going back to our roots and the natural rhythms and the way we're meant to live.
Yeah. And think about the vibration of the fruit and veg that you're getting from, you know, it hasn't been stored for like 6 months, frozen somewhere, and you know, driven from one end of the place to the next. It's right there. It's fresh.
And I think being a small farm, like there's more love in it. There's more love
Yeah.
in the vibration of the food, because that farmer is like, well, he's not growing on this mass scale, so he's got a connection to the amount of things that he's
Yeah.
harvesting, and then taking in his little truck, or his son or his, you know, nephews, getting that to the local organic store, and then you're receiving it. There's a lot more love in there, I think, and it's more connection. And of course, as we know, when we bless our food, it literally changes the vibration of it. But when you go, you know, like for me, I'm still a meat eater, right? But I love organic chicken, and I make chicken broth and all this stuff from it, and I bless it and I thank it. But getting a chicken from, you know, a local farmer is very different to getting a chicken from Aldi's or Coles, where you can just feel it's like there's no, it's not vibrating love, like it's not vibrating connection in to the one that produced it to produce it for you. You know, yeah.
I did some work in the Coles processing facility for the chicken.
Mm.
It is, yeah, it's not pretty. Not pretty at all. Like it's just so, it's so sanitary, and it's just like it's just dead. It's just all horrible. Even the humans that work in there, sadly, because they're just, you know, yeah.
You kind of switch off, I guess, wouldn't you? Like you would switch off if you're
Yeah.
working in that kind of environment. Yeah. I'm hungry now, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually made a big batch of organic vegetable soup last weekend, and that's all I keep thinking about.
Well, I think that's a beautiful note to wrap it up. And it sounds like we're on the same wavelength. I had been thinking a lot about, you know, changing the buying habits that I have, and looking at where I can, you know, there's a lot of great farms around where I live that do, you know, organic, local grown produce. And I think, yeah, just supporting all the local businesses, because there are a lot of people now that are making that change out of a corporate job or whatever industry they've been in, and starting their own enterprise and doing things. And I think the more that we can all support them as a community, that's how we grow, you know. And I've always seen that as like part of the shift is, you know, a lot of the larger organizations, you know, no longer being, and these pop up of all these sort of more self-sufficient ways of, you know, making a living, but doing it in a loving way, in a high vibrational way. And I think, you know, that interconnected communities, the energy that I'm really starting to feel into. It's not a thought, it's a feeling. It's a feeling that I can,
Yeah.
you know, deeply sense, and it's beautiful. So just want to thank you guys so much for coming on this morning and sharing this space with me. And thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope that we'll be back much more regularly, just to, you know, have conversations, and just to hopefully, you know, trigger or activate something maybe that you've been feeling or thinking about. And I think that that really helps. So just sending a lot of love to everyone, and look forward to connecting with you soon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.